What you're about to hear isn't just a story, it's a warning. Most people think the woods are quiet, safe. The wind whispers, the trees sway, and people like to pretend that's all there is. But they've never heard the footsteps behind them at midnight, or the laughter that echoes back their deepest fears in someone else's voice. They've never seen the scratches on trees where no animal could reach, or felt eyes watching from shadows that don't belong. If you're like me, you've always had that tingle of curiosity, what really lives in the wild places where the map fades out? Why do some stories circulate and never quite disappear, no matter how hard we try to forget them tonight? I'm sharing 3 true accounts that have haunted every corner of the internet. One of them almost got scrubbed from every archive I could find. A hiker who heard a voice too close to home in the pine dark. 2 friends dared by legends to enter a cabin no one should. And a lost soul who stumbled on a memory that refused to let him go. These are not ordinary campsite tales. They're warnings from the woods themselves, cold reminders that some things do more than just go bump in the night. So listen closely, because what you don't know can hurt you. And some secrets in the woods want nothing more than to be found. Let's begin. Not that you'll ever want to visit the deep woods again after this. There's a reason why every nightmare seems darker when it's set in the forest. In the daylight, forests wear a mask of innocence, leaves glittering in the sun, birdsong weaving through green canopies, everything smelling of earth and promise. Children run down trails, parents snap cheerful photos. It seems impossible that these same woods could ever hide anything sinister. But when the sun falls, the woods become something else entirely. The paths disappear. Shadows swallow the light. Night air clings colder out here, thicker, heavy with the damp breath of unseen things. All those cheery, familiar sounds fade, replaced by snapping twigs, unseen footsteps, the distant rustle of something that knows how to stay hidden. By day, it's an endless playground. By night, it's a maze built for fierce sunbeams by day, unknown eyes by night. Humans have always told legends about the forest. Old tales speak of hungry things that mimic our voices, or figures in the mist with faces just out of sight. Medieval maps caution travelers against wandering too far. Here be monsters. Even now, modern disappearances stack up. Dozens vanish every year beneath the same green ceiling, never to be found. Animal attacks, say the reports. But the numbers whisper something else. If you talk to rangers or old-timers, they'll tell you every forest has places that feel wrong. Places where compasses glitch out, where the birds go silent, and the air shifts cold all at once. Some say there are rules you must never break. Don't answer if you hear your own name. Never leave the path after dusk, and for God's sake, never follow singing. Tonight, you'll find out why those rules exist. Our first tale comes from someone who thought a hike would clear their mind. It started with a laugh that wasn't mine, echoing through the pines, a thin, bright sound, brittle as winter ice, floating half a second behind my boots on the packed needle trail. At first, I wrote it off as imagination. Sound does strange things out here. I'm no novice hiker. 10 years walking backwoods trails alone had taught me the difference between a coyote's bark, a branch kicked up by wind, and the tricks morning fog plays on your ears. This time, the sound felt different. Personal. Sometimes I think the woods lure you in with silence. That hush is part of the magic. The mind, unburdened, expands to fill the empty space. I'd started early, leaving my car at the edge of the old logging road where Pine Hollow curls between the valleys. I wanted distance. No service. No voices except my own, and maybe the hush of wind in the needles. The first few miles were everything I craved. Cool air, old pine scent clinging to every breath, the sun melting frost in cobwebs along the ground. My boots made soft scuffs that sounded almost musical. Solitude felt like a luxury. But the further I got, the denser the forest became. Old trunks close together, blocking light. The air cooled despite the season. I'd checked the map before heading out, spotted a little bend where the trail met a creek. My plan was to rest there, eat, double back. Simple, controlled. And then, somewhere after mile 4, I heard the laughter. It was unmistakable, a clipped sound, too cheerful for the mute pine air. I stopped, heart thumping, and listened hard. Nothing. Not a footstep, not a breeze. I stared into the green, tracing the source, squinting between tree trunks. Nothing moved. That's the funny thing about being alone, you start to doubt your own senses. I forced myself to keep moving, every rational bone insisting it must have been an echo from the highway, or maybe some animal. Still, I kept glancing over my shoulder. The trees pressed closer, needles draping the upper air, drinking in footsteps. My own breath sounded unfamiliar. When I rounded the creek bend, the laughter came again. This time, it was clearer, and it sounded like my brother, Mark. The pressure in my chest ratcheted up. Mark hadn't gone hiking with me in years. He lived states away, and even if he'd come out here, why would he be laughing? I listened, straining for context, hoping for the thud of a second hiker, the jingle of a dog collar. Nothing. My brother's voice. Or something wearing my brother's voice. I know how this sounds now unhinged. But out there, logic slips through your fingers. Every story you've ever heard, the ranger's warnings, the cautionary tales about mimics or callers, they start to feel less like fantasy and more like advice you should have taken. I gripped my phone, thinking, maybe I could call Mark. Confirm reality with a tinny voice and a regular, normal laugh. No service, of course. I pushed on, pace quickening. Every snap of a twig behind me made me wince. When I stopped to steady myself, I heard it again, only closer, a call this time. Hello? Hey, dead on, unmistakably Mark's inflection. I tried to shout back, but the words died in my throat. Instead, I listened, lungs burning, hands sweating against the straps of my pack. The voice was wrong somehow. Too echo-y, like someone mimicking speech without knowing exactly how emphasis works. All at once, my voice joined the chorus. I swear I heard myself shout, "Wait up," from somewhere behind me. The pitch was mine, the cadence. But my mouth was shut, jaw locked tight. My body froze, an unexplainable primal terror rooting me to the spot. At this point, most rational people would turn around. But if you've ever been truly scared in the woods, you know how disorienting it is. You tell yourself, just get to the main trail, get someplace familiar, then worry about explanations. I walked faster, half jogging, boots stumbling over roots and moss. Every few paces, another voice beckoned, first Mark again, then my own. Then my mother, who passed away 3 years ago. Come on, dinner's ready. Where are you? The air grew thicker. I choked down panic with each step. That's when my phone buzzed. One bar of service, suddenly alive. More out of hope than sense, I called Mark. He picked up on the third ring, panting. Hey, you alright? He asked, voice crackling. You didn't call me, did you? I whispered, voice shaking. No. Why? What's G? Before he could finish, another Mark. My Mark laughed behind me, closer than ever. I dropped the call, heart beating a frantic Morse code in my chest. Whatever was happening, I couldn't risk letting it lure me off trail. I fumbled with my GPS, but the screen glitched, flickering like static. Treetops loomed hungry overhead. That's when I heard words I'll never forget. You're almost there, my mother's voice saying it was perfect, radiant, like she'd never died. Don't you want to come home? If you've ever lost someone, truly lost them, you know how tempting that voice can be. For a second, grief overtook reason. My feet moved toward the sound, deep into the bramble beyond the marked path. Branches scratched my cheeks. The air felt too heavy, buzzing with static. Please, I whimpered, uncertain who or what I was pleading with. I don't remember how long I wandered, spinning, the voices drawing nearer and farther, repeating phrases, mixing and matching loved ones' words with my own. I remember the cold sweat slicking my neck, legs trembling. Suddenly, there was a clearing. Old pine limbs ringed the space, bark gouged with deep, deliberate slashes. The ground was scattered with broken shells of things, bird bones, snapped twigs, something that could have been a watch, coated in rust. In the center, a figure, human-shaped, but off limbs too long, head cocked to one side, pale as bone. Its mouth opened, and I heard myself, pleading, sobbing for help. Echo after echo, each perfectly mimicking the fear I felt. Stop, I whispered, backing away. It took a step forward, every movement a jitter, like it wasn't used to wearing a body. Please, my mother's voice from its throat, too loud, too sad. Come home, honey, just this way. And then, my voice, don't look back. Run. That broke the trance. Somehow, hearing my own panic honest, unfiltered snapped something inside me. I bolted, back through brambles, heart hammering. The voices rising in a sick choir behind me. Roots snagged my pack, branches raked my skin. I ran until the trees thinned and the air warmed, until the drone of traffic floated through the distance like salvation. I stumbled out of the woods filthy, scratched, barely breathing. Collapsed beside my car, shaking so hard I could barely get the keys in the ignition. I tell myself maybe I hallucinated. Fear does wild things. The woods are full of gases, flickers, tricks. But that night, propped against my apartment wall, my phone buzzed and a new voicemail appeared. No number, just 30 seconds of my own voice, screaming words I don't remember saying. Words I hope I never said. There are theories online about what I heard. None of them make me sleep any better. Some say these mimics are spirits, old as the land. Others swear it's some science we can't explain, ultra-low frequencies driving people insane. All I know is, some echoes out there don't come from a human throat. And not every survivor makes it out unmarked. Not every echo in the woods comes from a human throat. And not every survivor makes it out unmarked. Maybe you're sitting somewhere safe right now. Maybe city lights flicker behind your blinds, or the hum of someone else's TV reaches you from another room. It's easy, from where you are, to imagine stories like these are just that, stories. Something for late nights and scare-seeking after dark. A screen between you and everything unknown. But here's the thing. For every survival story you hear, every chilling confession posted to a forum or whispered at a campfire, there are a dozen more that never see daylight. Some folks make it back, shaken but whole, with a tail curled up inside them like a fist, afraid to open it for anyone else. Others, well, the woods are full of missing posters. Some tapes never get found. Some folks go into the woods and never post again. I see you in the comments, trading theories, dissecting the details. Have you ever heard screams in the distance on a camping trip? Ever hiked past a trail marker that didn't match your map? Or felt that tingle on the back of your neck when the path suddenly went too quiet? If you have, you're not alone. There's a reason these stories spiral out across the internet, changing shape but never really ending. We share them because we want to believe that knowledge is safety, the idea that if you just stick to rules, carry the right gear, share the warnings, you can keep the darkness at bay. But there are gaps. There are nights when I read what people send in half-remembered nights, static-filled recordings, voice notes that cut out with a snap and never pick up again, and I realize, not everyone gets to be the teller. Some woods swallow stories whole. Some places seem to want it that way. In the end, we tell ourselves we'd be different, that we wouldn't go off trail, wouldn't respond if something called our name, wouldn't get curious. Maybe you believe that. Maybe you're right. But the woods don't care what we believe or what we're afraid of. And sometimes, the thing waiting out there isn't a spirit or a hungry echo. But sometimes, the woods don't want to let go sometimes. The thing waiting is human. We thought the scariest thing in the woods would be raccoons until the sun went down and the knocking started. I can hardly say that with a straight face now, after everything. It's funny, in a sick way, how sure you can be of your own invincibility until the world decides to show you otherwise. My best friend, Jamie, and I grew up in the kind of small town where legends outnumber traffic lights. Everybody knows about Black River, but not in the way you think. You won't find it on any tourist flyer or hiking site. Black River is the spot you're warned about, the one whispered in stories between kids at the skate park late at night. Supposedly, there's a cabin out there, way off the trail, abandoned, decades old, and cursed. Some say a hermit used to live there, an outcast who kept to himself and chased off anyone dumb enough to poke around. But the thing with legends is, they always sound equal parts hilarious and ridiculous, right until you're in the middle of one. We were 17, bored, and cocky big talkers with nothing to prove except to each other. The dare was Jamie's idea. Sneak out, spend the night in the cabin, film it, and give everyone at school something new to talk about. If we survive the Hermit, Jamie said, we'll have enough cred to coast till senior year. So, on a muggy August night, we ditched our bikes behind a half-rotten log, flashlights and energy drinks rattling in our backpacks. The first hour was nothing but banter and bravado, Jamie making ghost noises, me laughing too loudly, both of us on edge but pretending not to be. Swear to God, if a raccoon jumps out, I'm turning around, Jamie muttered as we ducked under a tangle of old branches. You're more likely to get tetanus from these boards than eaten by a hermit, I shot back. He grinned, but his eyes flicked nervously at the shadows swallowing the last of the daylight. It took longer to find the cabin than we expected, the trail splaying off into thickets, bark marked with weird symbols, old paint faded to scabs. Locals said the hermit had covered the woods in wards, little twisted figures made from sticks and hair. I always thought it was just a story to keep kids out. But the closer we got, the weirder the woods seemed. Birds went silent. The air cooled, damp with the rotten sweet smell of something left to decompose. Sunlight bled out faster than it should have. When we finally broke through the trees, the cabin stood hunched in the clearing, a black shape at odds with the moonlight, sagging porch, windows like sockets in a skull. The chill I got was instant and deep. Jamie whistled to break the tension, but even that faded quick. "Place looks smaller than I imagined," he said, voice a little too high. "Yeah, well, photograph me on the porch so I can haunt your nightmares forever," I replied, just to keep things moving. Inside, the cabin was even worse, dark, close, the air stale with dust. Our flashlights picked out piles of debris, bones in the corner, probably animal, and the single narrow cot pushed against the far wall. There was a rough table with what looked like knife marks, and above it, a set of old runes scratched into the wood lines and circles twisting together. We set up our phones for proof, opened some chips, and tried to act like we weren't both hearing the wind moaning in the rafters. I wish I could say the yelling and laughter helped, but it just felt hollow. Around midnight, we filmed a fake seance, using a plastic cup and a page from Jamie's math homework. "Spirit of the Hermit," Jamie intoned, "grant us your mystical blessing so we crush the calculus final. Or at least prevent us from getting mauled by anything with teeth tonight," I added, rolling my eyes. After a while, our energy flagged. The air grew heavier, as if the dark pressed in against the windows. Our jokes ran out. The woods outside, quiet at dusk, now seemed cavernous. I kept catching myself looking over my shoulder, waiting for the shadows to move. We were both drifting near sleep when it started, a soft, rhythmic knocking, sharp and hollow, echoing just outside the thin walls. Not like a branch, but deliberate. Jamie sat bolt upright, eyes wide. "You hear that?" he whispered. I nodded, heart suddenly thrumming. "It's probably an animal," I tried, but it sounded like a lie even to me. The knocking stopped. We both strained to listen. After what felt like forever, Jamie shook his head. "Screw this," he muttered, getting up. "If it's someone from school screwing with us, I'm gonna." Another knock, and this time closer, right against the wall beside his head. The sound was weirdly slow, almost polite. "Who's there?" Jamie called, voice cracking with forced bravado. The night replied with silence. Then, a low whisper snaked in, barely audible, but unmistakable. "Not supposed to leave." Jamie's face went white. "Did you?" But I was already grabbing my phone, flashlight trembling in my hand. The air outside the blanket felt cold and slimy. We heard something scraping just beneath the floor, a dragging sound, as if someone or something was crawling the crawl space. We huddled together on the old cot, every muscle tensed. It felt like hours passed, with nothing but the pounding of our hearts. The whispers came again, now just outside the window. "Don't come out. Don't come out." The words sounded almost sleepy, like they were being repeated from memory. "We should just run for it," I whispered. Jamie shook his head, eyes glistening. "What if it's real? What if he's waiting?" I tried to laugh, to dismiss the fear, but my throat just clenched tight. It wasn't just the whispers or the knocking. It was the way everything else, the frogs, even the ever-present hum of mosquitoes, had gone silent, as if the woods were holding their breath. At some point, the air inside the cabin shifted, cool, then warmer than it should be. A rank, animal smell floated in. Jamie hissed for me to get down, and we crouched just below the window. I risked a peek over the sill and saw nothing, just the skeletal branches trembling and a scrap of dirty cloth caught on the porch railing, fluttering in the moonlight. When I turned around, Jamie was scrolling through his phone, lips working as he tried and failed to get a signal. "I don't get it." Last bar disappeared as soon as the knocking started. "It's like we're being jammed." That's when the voice came again, but this time from inside the room. "You shouldn't have come." There was someone in the doorway, or maybe something, a shape dragging one leg, face hidden behind a tangle of hair and dirt. Its clothes hung off at weird angles, skin smudged with streaks of something dark. Its eyes, if you could call them, that were like black coins, deep set and furious. But behind them, something flickered. Sadness, fury, hunger. Jamie went rigid. I should have run, but I was frozen, trapped by those eyes. "Locals say he's just a hermit," I blurted. "But some say it's not a hermit out here. It's a warden." He keeps the woods, makes sure nobody takes more than they should, or stays after dark. The thing in the doorway crouched lower, head twitching. He made a guttural noise, almost like a growl. In the silence, my thoughts ran wild. Every story about lost hikers, about those who disappeared on cold autumn nights, about offerings left in trees for the thing that walked the woods. Behind me, Jamie whimpered, "Please. We're sorry. We'll go. We'll leave it all." The hermit or warden, or whatever it was, moved fast. One moment it was in the doorway. The next it was whispering just over my shoulder. "Too late. Too late. Too late." Spit flecked, cold as granite. My brain snapped into survival mode. I grabbed Jamie's wrist and yanked him up. We barreled through the back window, shards of glass tearing my arm into the brush. I never looked back, not even when Jamie stumbled and screamed for me to slow down. The woods turned a funhouse of shadows, breaths ragged, feet tripping on tangled roots. We ran until the trees thinned and the crushing night air broke. Somehow, we found our way back to the rotting log where our bikes were hidden, one tire already slashed. But that didn't stop us from pushing those bikes down muddy lanes, hands shaking so hard we nearly crashed a dozen times. At the edge of the woods, I risked a glance back. That's when I saw a hunched figure just beyond the tree line, watching, its face half in shadow. Briefly, one of those black eyes caught the moonlight, reflecting the world in a way that made it seem older and far less human than I'll ever forget. We made it out physically, but Jamie won't talk about that night anymore. He switched schools before graduation. Last I heard, he left town altogether and doesn't take calls from anyone who brings up Black River. Me, I still have the... If you've been around this channel for a while, you know there are patterns, little echoes you start to recognize if you listen close. There's the obvious stuff. Don't split up. Don't answer your name if you hear it from the dark. Don't trust what your eyes tell you when the woods get weird and silent. But the real rules, the ones no one bothers to write down, those are the ones that matter most. The ones you only learn the hard way. Take a second and think about it. How many stories on here start with a dare, or a shortcut, or a joke that goes just a little too far? These are the rules that never make it into the official park guidelines. Like, never pick up objects you find on the trail, even if they look harmless. Never follow the echo of your own voice. And if you hear knocking, don't answer. Just ask the Morse code guy from episode 26. He figured that out a little too late. Some viewers have started compiling their own lists, piecing together survival tips from story after story. Rule number 4, someone wrote last week, is that if you think you're being watched, you probably are, but by the time you realize it, it's already too late. Sounds about right. But here's the thing. For every rule we figure out, the woods seem to invent 3 more. So as you're listening, drop your own rules in the comments. Your theories, your family superstitions, those hand-me-down warnings whispered on cold camping nights. Because one day, the right rule might be the reason somebody makes it home. Our last story takes us deeper where the map runs out, and the woods remember everyone who steps inside. They say there's a tree where the woods themselves remember you, or delete you. I heard that phrase before, late at night, scrolling old forums filled with ghost stories and urban legends, just campfire talk for the quick and curious. I never thought it meant anything real. I never thought I'd lose myself beneath its roots. I grew up hunting these forests, running traps with my dad and learning all the little landmarks nobody else noticed. I could find my way by the moss, by the way the water pooled near certain stones, by how old logs pointed like arrows. It got to where neighbors would call me if a dog got loose or if they needed someone to help find a lost kid. I never once got turned around or felt like the forest could outsmart me. That was before last fall, the day my luck ran all the way out. I was alone, should have brought a friend, I know, but the group bailed and I needed the solitude. I told myself I'd check a patch north of Barker's Ridge, where rumor had it some big buck had been seen. In the parking lot, I texted my wife, heading in now, be home before dusk. Even now, I remember those words so clearly, like carvings in the bark of my mind. The hike was easy at first. Sun at my back, orange leaves underfoot, that perfect wood smoke chill in the air. I counted my steps, set my GPS, and thought about what I'd make for dinner if I got lucky. The usual things. Should call my wife and remind her to thaw something. Check in on Hannah's homework when I got back. I passed the old miller's stand, half collapsed, and kept moving. By midday, I realized something was wrong. The path, blurring under my boots, wasn't the one I thought it was. Landmarks were off the creek on my left when it should have been on my right. That big deadfall missing entirely. I blamed the fog that rolled in, sudden and thick as wool, blanketing everything in a hush that pressed against my ears. I should have turned back. Instead, I double-checked my GPS blank screen. No signal. The numbers stuttering, then freezing. I laughed at myself, tried to shake the chill creeping down my spine. The forest wasn't alive, wasn't plotting. I just needed to keep moving. But every step seemed to draw me deeper, and the air grew stranger. The birdsong faded, the wind died, and the light filtered green and unhealthy. I caught a whiff of something. Sickly sweet sap or rot. It coated the back of my throat. My head buzzed like I'd stood up too fast. Then I saw it. The tree. It wasn't huge, no storybook giant, but the bark shimmered, all silver and black, impossible patterns crawling over the surface. Thick, warped roots burst from the dirt like the fingers of a hand trying to grip the world. Around its base, the forest seemed to sag. No grass, no leaves, just bare, pitted ground. I felt compelled no other way to describe it, like a fish drifting into a net. Against every ounce of sense, I stumbled closer, squinting at the trunk. Carvings crisscrossed every inch. Initials, names, some old, some freshly gouged. Dates both legible and worn away. Some letters weren't even in any alphabet I recognized. Should call my wife, I mumbled. What was her name? I squeezed my phone, but all I got was static, a flat mirror showing only my own lost face. That's when the voices started. First, my dad's. The way he sounded the last year before he died, fragile, kind, a memory I kept protected. Lost, are you? He chuckled. Take it slow, you always rush. I spun around, but of course, he wasn't there. The woods behind me shimmered, melting in the edges of my vision. Then my daughter's voice, laughter rising up into the branches. Daddy, I drew you a picture. It's you. See, some part of my brain throbbed with panic. Stay awake. Remember, don't trust it. But my head felt soft, full of holes. A cold breeze skittered low, the tree's bark rippled, and I swore it shifted, producing a new set of initials right before my eyes. I stepped back, but the ground beneath was loose. I found old coins, a rusted penknife, scraps of faded photograph. I stared at the objects, feeling a memory skirt the edge of my mind, then slip away. Who gave me that knife? Why was the face on that photograph suddenly so hard to bring into focus? I closed my eyes and forced myself to say my wife's name. Nothing. Not even a syllable. Panic squeezed my chest. What color was her hair? How old was Hannah? What did our front door look like? I felt the details sliding off me, like rain off new leaves. I pressed my palm to the bark, desperate for something to ground me. The tree was cold, almost wet, and as soon as my skin touched it, a sensation rushed up my arm, a noise, not sound, but information, impossibly fast. I glimpsed a boy in old-fashioned clothes fighting the current of history. A woman screaming for her lost child. Hunters, hikers, locals with backpacks and gnarled walking sticks, sliding into the dirt as if time was tripping and falling beneath their feet. I jerked my hand back. The tree whispered, its leaves not moving, but the words leaking directly into my head. Give me a memory. A good one. Just one. I answered, unsure if my mouth moved or not. No, my voice sounded thin, unsteady. I want to go home. I want to remember home. But what did home mean exactly? I tried to imagine it, our kitchen, the clocks, the way sunlight came through the living room window. But the images were thin, blurry, already evaporating. Something like a face pressed out from the bark, nose and mouth only half formed. The voice took on my mother's accent, soft but insistent. It's easier if you let go. All things return to the woods. You can forget the hurt. Suddenly, I remembered every missing poster stapled to the ranger station billboard. Does anyone know the face of a teenage boy, a park volunteer, an old man with his favorite fishing hat all swallowed by green nothing, untraceable coordinates? Did they find this tree? To know, I said again, louder. Then I screamed it. The whole forest echoed back. No. I ran. I didn't even care which way, I just had to put space between me and the thing rooting itself in my mind. But the path kept curving back, trees blending together, time slipping. How long had it been? Hours, days. I stumbled, tripped over roots, knuckles bleeding, my breath a ragged thing. My own name was slipping. My chest heaved with terror, not just of dying, but a vanishing not being found, not remembered, not real. Another voice drifted from the branches, my own this time, hollow and cold. There's no home. There's no leaving. There's only the memory tree. I tried to recall my wife's name, screamed it into the fog, but every word I'd ever known felt far away. The tree's roots drew closer, writhing almost like serpents, searching, hungry. Faces flickered in the knots and bark, faces I might have known or wanted to know. I curled around my last clear thought. I am me. I am real. I must get out. As if sensing my resolve, the forest blurred, turning sharper at the edges. I forced myself to look away from the tree, to ignore the voices, to run until my legs gave out. At some point, the world tilted, gravity faltered, and I tumbled down a slope so steep I thought my bones would break. Cold water slapped my skin, the river. Or some river. I focused on the pain, the chill, the way it made me remember that I was alive. I crawled up the opposite bank, the fog burning away, sunlight finally bleeding through the leaves. On hands and knees, I still didn't stop until I staggered, filthy, lost, empty, out onto a logging road, headlights blinding me. I don't recall how I got to the hospital. They found me raving, dehydrated, face streaked with mud and blood. They said it was exposure, maybe hypothermia. My phone was gone, so were my knife and jacket. I gave my wife's name to a nurse and burst into tears when it came back to me. It was like finding an old, beloved photograph, painful to look at, but precious. They asked what happened, but what could I say? That the woods nearly took myself. They recorded it as another lost time, another miracle. Sometimes, late at night, I wonder what would have happened if I'd given the tree what it wanted, just one little memory. A month later, a ranger hiked out with me, following coordinates I'd scribbled on a napkin at the hospital. Nothing. No strange tree. Not even a dead zone, just normal pines and old oak. Nothing but the sound of birds. But sometimes when I dream, or when the shadows get long and the wind sifts through the house in that same syrupy, sticky way, I lose words again. Names slip, dates go missing, and I wonder if a piece of me is still rooted in that clearing, feeding the tree. They say there's a tree where the woods remember you or erase you. There are coordinates in the police report, but no one's found that tree since. If you forget this story tomorrow, maybe that's the woods working too. 3 stories, 3 warnings. But the woods? They don't care if you listen. It's easy to feel safe, watching these stories play out from the comfort of a bright room, the sounds of ordinary life humming behind you. But the woods don't end just because the video does. They stretch on, green and black, older than any story, closer to your doorstep than you want to imagine. Think about the echoes that followed that hiker, voices using his past to reel him deeper, or the friends in Black River, whose dare turned into the kind of memory they'll never laugh about, no matter how far they run. And the last survivor, stumbling out half erased, still wondering if someone or something took a piece of him that day. None of them came out unmarked. None of them left the woods the same as they went in. Maybe that's the true horror, not the monsters or the whispers, but how the woods change you. How the fear follows you home, silent as leaf mold on your boots. You're safe watching a screen. But what will you hear tonight when everything goes quiet? The tap of a branch on your window. The faint call of your own name, distant and wrong. Or maybe nothing at all, just the memory of 3 true stories that all started with simple mistakes. A shortcut, a dare, a single step off the path. If you have a story, don't wait too long to share. The woods don't want you talking. Every year, new names go missing, new rules get written, new warnings flicker between comment threads and whispered phone calls. Maybe your rule will save someone. Or maybe, like the others, you'll write your journey down only to find your words gone in the morning. So, leave your story in the comments. Tell us the warnings passed down in your family, the places you'll never go again, the things the woods whispered to you. Sleep well, and remember, some things echo even after the screen goes black.